Never seen a lame man walk. Ever heard a dumb man talk. Never seen a blind man see. I promise you will change his name. Never seen a canceled debt. Never seen all the poor get fed. Never seen a prisoner set free. I promise you will change his name. Broken heart made whole. Never seen an orphan find a home. Never seen the weak find the strength. I promise you will change his name.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Hey, Clint, how you doing, man?
I was just doing some math.
Arithmetic. Yeah.
Yes.
We need to get you.
I do a lot of math.
Yeah.
What are those?
How you doing, Clint? It's time for the podcast.
It is.
It's time for the podcast.
I hung up Tommy Robbie and everything, so
that's right.
To go. You see Branscombe doing the Costanza, you know it's podcast time.
It's the brand stanza. It's the brand stanza behind you.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's our official name or not.
Funny thing about the brand stanza is, the wife teaches virtually, and so she had sent me a Marco Polo. And it was like the next day, I'm like, hey, I know you may have Zoom meetings. You may want to take the brand stanza down. She left the brand stanza up. She goes, oh, my God. Thankfully, she had a meeting and got to take it down.
Yeah.
I should have just kept my mouth shut. And like the kids would be like, what's that?
Yeah, some junior high kid coming in for class, like, what's Miss Clark got that up for?
Yeah, like, what's that for? Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, man, Clint, have you had a good week?
Man, I've had a great week. We had some hiccups in the week, but like we do, we persevere, we work through it, we adapt, and we overcome.
That's right.
And sometimes you have to apologize when
Bounce
you're wrong.
on pass. That's
yeah,
right.
so it's Akuma Matata.
Akuma Matata.
Akuma Matata.
Well, now listen, I know last night we're recording this on Wednesday morning, and so last night the Hogs baseball team, which we talked about quite a bit with our Bambo last week, played Arkansas State, a historic, in-state game there, and our Holy Shnikes moment today comes from that. Tell us a little bit about during that game, the kind of the Holy Shnikes moment that a lot of people. Well, unless you're from Greenbrier or Valonia, I would not have recognized.
Right. Well, the Faulkner County shootout forever is Greenbrier versus Valonia, and it tends to get intense. And we've well documented Caden Wallace, Greenbrier boy from Wooster, Shawbridge Road.
That's right.
Is one of the best.
Shawbridge Slugger. That's what I'm calling him.
Shawbridge Slugger. Batting third for the Arkansas, shade bit north of 300 as a true freshman. But last night, the Holy Shnikes moment happened, and I didn't catch his name. Like I said, no one does less research than we do. We actually decided this was the Holy Shnikes moment 3 minutes ago.
Yeah.
3-4 minutes ago. But I suggested it, and Big T's like, you're right, that's it. But the pitcher was from Valonia, Arkansas. The batter, Caden Wallace, was from Greenbrier, Arkansas. He did walk Caden on 4 pitches. Caden's got a terrific eye, and that guy was just – you can't imagine being a true freshman going against a guy that you probably pitched against 1,000 times.
Because he's a dirty eagle, and he knew he's going to crush you.
Yeah, right. He's like, man, if I throw him anything to hit, he's going to hit it out the ballpark. Because
sorry, there goes my rivalry coming in.
They're your rivalry voice. Pluck the Eagles.
That's right.
Which I only did what we had. Me and you were talking about this. 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. That's, hold on, carry the 2. 6 years. And I have 1 win. I'm 1-5 against Valonia.
Yeah.
There's actually video of my 9th grade year. My good friend Jumbo Coffin, who played at Valonia, we played together at Tech. I remember he knocked the crap out of me, and I went flying about 5 yards backwards.
Jumbo was a beast.
He was a beast, and so that's who I had all night. That makes for a long day at the office.
Yeah, it was that. Everyone has rivalries. If you're watching this, course, if you know us, you're from Greenbrier, you know about the Greenbrier-Valonia rivalry. But I know some of my friends from Camden know about the, of course, they hear stories about the Camden-Fairview rivalry. And then there's the Camden-El Dorado, Camden-Magnolia. But Camden-Valonia was a big-time rivalry, mainly because all the parents, all the adults worked together in Conway. So, like, everybody worked in Conway, lived in Valonia or Greenbrier, were like 2 suburbs of Conway. And so they would talk trash to each other. And then, like, all the high school kids, we would go to Conway and hang out and cruise the cruise strip and all that kind of stuff, or the movie theater or whatever. And so, man, it was like, even when we were in high school, when rivalries were kind of dying down a little bit, like they would bring in an extra concession stand and make the Valonia people go in on another side of the stadium to where they wouldn't intermingle at all. Like, they had to go into a different ticket booth and everything. Like, it was, and I remember one time somebody I think it was one of our booster club people. Like, we walked in our locker room before a game and there was a ceramic, like, I don't know about ceramic, but it's like made out of concrete or something, but it was an eagle.
Right, yeah.
And it was like beat the Panthers and painted like red and white and stuff. I know it was one of our boosters that did it.
Oh, no, yeah, no, for sure.
They put it in our locker room, though. And so we took it out and threw it in the parking lot and busted it up and stuff. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, and the thing was, like, we would lose to them in football, and then we'd make the playoffs and they wouldn't.
Because some genius, and I don't know who the genius at the AAA was, and it's still a terrible, terrible decision. I mean, we're 20, 30 years later now.
Yeah.
Some genius decided that we're going to take Greenbrier and Valonia and put them in 2 separate conferences. Yeah. Even though they're schools almost the identical size.
Yeah.
And rivals, we're going to make them
15 minutes apart. Yeah.
15 minutes apart. We're going to put them in 2 different totally conferences, which was dumb because we were they put us with more of the Northwest schools, Atkins, Dover.
Yeah. Lamar,
which, I mean, thank y'all for giving us Lamar. That was playing time when I was a backup.
That was see how many orange marks you can get on your helmet game.
Yeah, that and Yellville was a good one for that. You can get the green marks on your helmet.
Yeah, that's not good for your CTE at all.
No, and I straight up speared a kid just full blown, which I could. Thank goodness I didn't break my neck because it was dumb. But
I had butted some poor kid at Lamar every play in the second half.
Just because you wanted to look cool, get them marks on your white helmet.
I was trying to get marks, man. But anyway, all right, I'm gonna get fired up about Valonia because, it's kind of funny.
And Josh Albott is the, and I'm probably Albat. I'm probably butchering his name, but he is a true freshman from Valonia, Arkansas. It faced off against Caden Wallace. Josh did not do too swiftly last night, but he was. You're playing the number 1 team in the country, and you're a pitcher for.
And later on, Caden Wallace did go stank fly on him.
Oh no, he hit a grand salami last night. That was, I think, early in the game, and Arkansas got up 5-0 and ended up hanging on to win 8-4. So
yeah. So all right, well, Clint, that's a good Holy Snikes moment. We're fired up now. There's something else. We get fired up about lots of things, right? I mean,
yeah.
There's lots of things that'll fire us up. We can talk about lots of stuff, but there's something that gets you fired up.
Yeah.
And
it's unhealthy.
And I've heard you talk about it, and I want to address it publicly because I think it's unhealthy. It's way unhealthy.
It probably is.
And it's one of those we've talked about, every now and then we may talk about some unpopular opinions on here. Okay. Yeah. So some opinions we have that probably not everybody else has. But we see things a little differently. And I'm going to say with a lot of times sometimes it's because we think things through a little too much. Anyway, Clint, you have an unhealthy unpopular opinion. I'm gonna say it's unhealthy. May not be that unhealthy. It's anyway. You have a view of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, I mean, God, I mean, why? I mean, first off, you even bringing it up it irritates me because let's just be honest. Let's just be okay. So Charlie Bucket seems like a good kid on the inside. He goes to school and he's like, "Oh, help me, I'm poor. Help me, I'm poor." Yeah. I mean, a little bit. You know, I mean, he could be a good kid. I don't know. His mom. I mean, pretty much the entire house. All they have to eat is cabbage soup. That's it.
That's rough. That's rough.
That's rough. So you know, number one, that house smells like fart.
Yes,
I mean, it does. I mean, everybody's in there, and they've got the entire what is this 1902 when this movie was
something like that? Yeah,
something like that. Got Gene Wilder. Gene Wilder, you know, he's got the meme. You know, he's you know, and that's pretty much all the millennials know about Willy Wonka. They don't know.
That's right.
So the thing that irritates me about Willy Wonka is number one. First off, a big gigantic plot hole in the twist is how did Grandpa Joe buys him a candy bar. Amazon's not a thing in this day. You know, I honestly don't know if disability is a thing in this day because obviously he ain't got out of bed. You know, he's riddled with bed sores. So Grandpa Joe somehow gets $1 or whatever it costs to buy candy. He doesn't get medicine. He doesn't get, you know, he darn well don't get a job. So he goes out and he buys Charlie a candy bar. A candy bar. And then you're like, oh, this is it. Charlie's going to get his. No, Charlie don't get his. He doesn't win nothing. Because, you know, first off, Grandpa Joe bought that candy bar. So then Grandpa Joe, you know, so Charlie later on, he finds $1. And you can say what? He probably should have got his family like maybe a bag of apples, something for the entire family.
Yeah.
I mean, apples. You know what? You got to think $1 in the street back then. You could probably bought a thing of leg quarters. Don't you think Grandpa Joe and the other grandparents would like a little protein Charlie?
That's right.
And so those leg quarters aren't expensive. When I'm broke, that's what I do. I go buy like egg quarters and, you know, give me a bag of leg quarters and I eat on those for a while.
There you go. See?
There you go. So that's when you're broke.
Leg quarters.
Yeah. It's the way to go. Because you can get like 2 meals out of one leg quarter if you're thrifty. So if you're thrifty,
if you got enough ramen noodles,
right? So you know, Grandpa. So Charlie, he goes and he buys the candy with it, which is selfish, but it's neither here nor there. Let's just teach kids how to be selfish. It's not a big deal. So he does that. He finds the candy. He goes, gets the candy. He gets the bar. Now, obviously, he could have sold it, and he could have got his family out of poverty.
Yeah.
I mean, he's literally got the golden ticket, but no, he goes and he's like, hey y'all, I want to tour to the chocolate factory.
Yeah.
You know, Squidsworth, whatever his name is, already offered him $25,000 for the never ending gobstopper. He should be like, hey, give me the 25 G's. Here's your ticket. Go get you another stooge. If he wanted to be moral, then, you know, like, here you go. Now I'm out of my hand. No, so he goes home, gives the family the golden ticket. He gives the family, he's like, I got the golden ticket. Yeah. And then, so Grandpa Joe all of a sudden's like, hey, you know what? I'm dancing. Wait,
I thought he was having bed sores.
But apparently not. Apparently Grandpa Joe's been faking this entire time. And Grandpa Joe's just too lazy to go out and get a job. He'd rather eat cabbage soup and live in a place that smells like fart than gets. I'm sorry, I'm a little fired.
It's actually, calm down. Breathe.
It's like Clark v. Branscombe this week.
Yes, yeah.
Sorry, let me drink some water and calm down.
That's right.
So, okay, where was it? So let's just fast forward. So they're in the chocolate factory. All kinds of OSHA violations. I don't know. Can you make? I almost said the M word, but can you make little people work for free? They got all these Oompa Loompas, and let's not even get the remake. I mean, they had one little person play all the parts.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there. Let's talk about the original. because so Grandpa Joe, we go later on, like first off, you see one kid drown in a chocolate pool. That's not sanitary.
Yeah.
One kid blow up like a blueberry. You got the big kid that gets sucked up the tube? I mean,
I think so. So yeah.
Then
it's been a long time since I've watched.
Veruca Salt goes down the thing. I mean, like at some point I'd been like, look, I'm out.
That's right.
Like I'm out. Like, you know what? This is my anxiety cannot handle this. So they're in the soda room, and Grandpa Joe's like, hey, he's kind of like the devil. He's like, eat the apple, Eve. Huh? He's like, hey, Charlie, drink the soda. Charlie comes this close to dying, getting chopped to bits. And whose fault is it? Grandpa freaking Joe's.
Grandpa Joe's the bad guy.
Yeah. And then, we get you fast forward to the end scene, like they've made it through. He's got the never ending gobstopper. And he's like, Grandpa Joe's like, come on, we're going to make the 25 G's off of Slugsworth. And he gives it back to freaking Willy Wonka. He's like, here's your candy. He's like, hey, I'm going to give you the chocolate factory. You're just going to live here with us. And no one's going to act like this. And everybody's just like, oh, this is great. This is okay. This is normal. It's unhealthy. The entire movie's unhealthy. The entire if you and your kids watch this movie, it's unhealthy. Don't do it anymore. Gene Wilder's a genius. The rest of them guys can go.
Okay. All right. Well,
I'm happy I got that out.
Got that out of your system. You purged it. Okay.
All right, but on to better things now.
That's disturbing.
It is disturbing.
But yeah. All right. So here's the deal, Clint. Me and you, in our history together as friends, we love. One thing, we always loved road trips, right? We always had to have a theme song for our road trips.
Yes.
And then also on those road trips, we love to make lists. Or if we're just hanging out and doing, watching a movie or something, we'd love to make a list, right? Mm-hmm. And we would do the greatest rock bands of all time. We'd do the greatest whatever it was. And we'd even do the greatest hockey players. Of course, we would stop after Wayne Gretzky because none of us knew any hockey players. We'd always do lists. So today we're going to do a list. Okay, we've talked about this. We've been thinking about it, of our Mount Rushmore of our favorite Razorbacks since Houston Nutt. Right? You had it. We talked about that caveat. Since Houston Nutt was coach, because I mean I can go back to Hatfield and Danny Ford a little bit, but I mean there's already so many, we really were intense watching it as we were a little older, going into the Houston Nutt era. So what criteria did you use before? We'll kind of ping pong back and forth our four picks.
I know we have one that overlaps.
Let's use the criteria. Tell the criteria that you use to pick your four guys, and then I'll tell kind of my criteria.
Yeah. And I'm going to make one rule that me and you had before everybody starts yelling like, well, two of them are easy. Yeah. As you know, Tommy Smith calls it coreless somebody. Like that. Not count them like it does. This is going to win. We all know it's going to win. So
it's a given. They're already in.
Darren McFadden is without a doubt. I don't even think it's arguably the greatest Razorback football player of all time. The most decorated, 2 Doak Walker awards, 2 second place Heisman finishes.
Yeah, that close to the Heisman.
It probably should have won it at least once, in my opinion. And then the other one, if you have an award named after you, if you're so good and you do something so spectacular, they name a college football award after you, like they did Brandon Burlsworth. You go on the list. So we're not allowed to say Brandon Burlsworth, who also had a feature film made about his life. So you can't say Brandon Burlsworth and you can't say Darren McFadden.
And once again, we're doing that out of respect for them, not out of it's total like I said the other day, they're the rock that Mount Rushmore is made out of.
Exactly.
Okay, they're the guys that you cannot talk about Razorback football going back to the Houston Nut era. Now there's other guys I know. If you start talking about Razorback football back into the, early days, the Lance Allworths and people like that, and you can't talk about Razorback football without talking about them. For sure, you cannot talk about Razorback football going back to Houston Nut era without talking about Brandon Burlsworth and Darren McFadden. So they're already in. We agree on that.
Yeah.
But we're picking 4 more. And once again, these are who our favorites are.
My criteria was how I felt you represented Razorback football. Overall, the whole picture, playing career, pro career, your overall representation of Razorback football. And basically if I wanted to put you on there or not. Because I told Travis, I said, I got 3 of them set in stone. And the 4th one is not going to be decided probably till it comes out my mouth.
Yeah.
So you want to start off with the one that me and you have that overlaps, or you
let me
over
tell
your criteria?
Let me do my criteria real quick. My criteria was I want to. These are guys that I saw give 110% every play. Okay, that's a big one for me. These were not guys that I felt like took plays off. I could be wrong on some of that, but watching them on TV and at games that I was at. And then also I really like the guys that did less or more with less. So maybe a guy was a little undersized, not quite as fast as everybody else, but really, man, just brought it. So that's kind of my criteria. And just players that I just respected a lot. Okay. So let's go with the first one we both agree with and tell about why we picked him. Clint, go ahead.
Trey Flowers.
Definitely.
Helped, he solidified a defensive line. You had him, Darius Philon, and Spate. We called it the Bermuda Triangles. You went over there, you were never seen again. But he played the right way. A 2-star recruit out of Alabama. Really wasn't offered by Alabama or Auburn. I think we beat out Alabama Birmingham for him.
Yeah.
It turned out to just be one of the most solid defensive linemen, probably, in my opinion, definitely the best defensive lineman of that era. And he just played the game the right way, represented, carried himself the right way. You could tell the respect, when he's coming off the field senior day and Belima hugged his neck. You could tell that respect that Belima had for him. Belima played defensive line, whether you liked him or not, but you could tell the respect that he had and how hard he worked. He's one of the guys, 2-star recruit. Yeah, they may put you on scholarship, but they ain't coming in expecting you to set the world on fire. And he came out and he outperformed his star rating. And, they loved him in New England. He helped win them a Super Bowl with that sack. And they loved him so much that the Detroit Lions backed the Brinks truck up and said, "Here, come live in Detroit."
Yeah.
What they'd have to do to get me to live in Detroit.
That's right.
But yeah, so that is why he is on my Mount Rushmore. Is just he came in a time when the program was on a downhill slide and, just outperformed everything. It was just a solid ball player for him.
For me, the thing was, I agree with everything you said. And then for some reason, I just loved watching him play. Like I would watch games, and I'm a big nerd. I would rewatch games and I'd watch the play away from the ball and stuff. And I always watched him. And he did such a good job of setting the edge, keeping leverage on the blockers. Like a lot of things that don't go in the stats book, okay? A lot of things that he got some sacks, and those look good. Got him a little national attention, got him drafted. But, man, he did so many things that didn't go in the stats book and that's what I respected for him, okay? Because it means so much when that defensive end will set that edge so that running quarterback can't run on you. And he stay in his in his coverage area. So anyway, Trey Flowers, the man. Clint, what's your next one?
All right. Now I'm gonna tell you, and I know you don't agree with this one, but I don't know if you disagree, but I'm going with Jason Peters. And the reason I'm going with Jason Peters is I can't ignore his pro football career.
Yeah.
If you watch the Arkansas Ole Miss 7 overtime game, there's 2 surefire first ballot Hall of Famers in that game, in my opinion. Jason Peters and Eli Manning.
Yeah.
And I think they're both no-brainers. People can argue Eli, and I think he is, but that's
yeah.
We can let 2 friends that want to talk Ole Miss athletics talk about that.
That's
it's
right.
Harder to talk about that. I'm not going to. But for years, he was the best left tackle in football.
Yeah.
Still to this day, may be one of the best run blocking offensive linemen there are. But Houston Nutt made a lot of yards. A lot of guys made a lot of yards with Jason Peters being lined up next to Sean Andrews and being like, we're going to run it right here. You're not going to stop it. And plus that 7 overtime game, he made some bonkers catches. I mean that.
And that's the thing. You hadn't said it yet, so I just want to say it. He played tight end at Arkansas.
Yeah. Went undrafted, left after his junior year, went undrafted, signed a free agent contract with the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills moved him to left tackle. And then, here we are 20-something years later talking about him having a first ballot Hall of Fame career. No matter who we talk about from that era, whether it be Darren McFadden, whatever, you can name all the great players from that. There's one first ballot Hall of Famer that played during the era, and that's Jason Peters, and that's why I cannot leave him off the list, and he is my number 1 guy.
Okay. I agree. I mean, a lot of what you said, I agree with you about Jason Peters. I didn't look at the pro at all on my guys. So that didn't really enter into my thoughts. I just thought of them as Razorbacks. But the only problem I have with Peters is the same problem I have with Sean. What's the last name? He's from Camden. Andrews. Yeah. Is they would take plays off. They didn't give maximum effort all the time. Now, Jason Peters, especially like in that 7 overtime game, came up big on catches, and that was where he was different playing tight end, 320 pounds or more, 6'5". So yeah, I mean, I can see, I can't argue too much against him. He just didn't make my list because of that. My next one is I'm going with an offensive guy for my next one on the list. This is once again a guy that did a whole lot with a little, and that's Fred freaking Talley. I loved watching Fred Talley run. I love watching running backs that hit the hole quick, and he would hit the hole quick, and he had great balance when he would hit the hole, so he would just bounce off people. He'd run up, he'd get hit by somebody, man, he would just bounce off and he'd take off for another 30 yards. And then he had 200 and something yards against Auburn. I mean, I was gonna bring that up. Wasn't that the rushing record till Darren McFadden broke it against South Carolina? Yeah. I think the joke is, there's still people on like Auburn message boards that say Fred Talley just ran by my window. Okay, he's still running on them. Okay, because he just was a beast that game. But there was a lot of games that that we had other bigger, stronger running backs during that time. What did he play with Cobbs and Cobbs some and Chikuma some, but they were slower to the hole, and so there we did a lot of trap blocking back then, under Nutt, and so he would he would hit that hole just right, man, because he wouldn't hesitate. And I got my buddy Matt Sandiford. He talks about, like, he went to class with him up at U of A, and he said he walked in and he's like, they called the roll and someone said, "That's Fred Talley." And he said he looked at him, he looked like a 12-year-old kid. He was so short. Yeah. He's like, this guy is destroying SEC teams running the ball. So Fred Talley played hard every play. He blocked well, pretty well for a little guy. He wasn't scared to throw his head in there. So Fred Talley's my neck.
Yeah, and the only argument I really don't have an argument against Fred Talley. The only thing I'd have is we've had so many good running backs.
Yeah.
Going back, I mean, from Rakeem Boyd to further back there, he doesn't stand. To me, I can see why you picked him, but he doesn't stand out from the crowd that much to me to pick him.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those Travis's favorite. It's the only reason he's there.
Right.
If I had a team, I would want him on my team.
Yeah.
And I would pick him above some of the guys that had a lot more yards, probably, just because I think he had a lot of carries. He could have been featured a little more, but then again, if he was featured with this size, would he have been that great? Would he have been able to hold up? Who knows? So, but as a Razorback, he was one of my favorites to watch. Yep. Who's your next one?
Ron Mallett.
Of
course, the story about Ron Mallett is he wanted to come to Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
That's where he wanted to go. Arkansas had just signed Mitch Mustang. And Mitch Mustang didn't want to be at Arkansas. He did not want to play in Houston Nutt's system. And it was gently put a disaster.
Yeah.
And it might, in retrospect, and this is neither here nor there, this is me seeing a rabbit and chasing it. It might have been neat to see if Bobby Petrino had been the head coach at Arkansas and coach Mitch Mustang. We could be having a different story, a different conversation about that all. But that's just that's one of them. What could have been? Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, so Mitch, Arkansas ends in a divorce. About that same time, they had Michigan. I can't remember. Was it Carr? It may have been Carr. Had retired.
Yeah, but it changed completely.
And they bought in Rich Rod, and Rich Rod runs an offense similar to what Arkansas runs now. And Ryan Mallett's not a fit for that offense. You need a KJ Jefferson, you need a more mobile quarterback. And I might beat Ryan Mallett in a foot race. I wouldn't, but but I mean, Ryan Mallett, a big, strong arm. And we went from kind of going downhill, and Ryan Mallett shot us up. And plus, he quarterbacked us to the only BCS bowl in the history of Razorback football. Went to the Sugar Bowl, played Ohio State.
Don't remind me.
Yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
I was there.
Scoop and score.
I was there. I know. But, and that was a Camden boy that should have scooped and scored that.
So it was what it was, which that win has been vacated by Ohio State, but everybody.
Oh, that makes us feel better, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's kind of like the Auburn game this year. We got hosed. Like, I don't really make us feel better.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm picking Ron Mallett. And you really can't look. He didn't. I mean, a lot of people, I remember after the Alabama game, I think his senior year, where he didn't have the best game, everybody's like, Ryan Mallett he didn't show up in big games. I'm like, no one shows up big, especially the way Alabama was playing defense those times. It's hard to look back on his playing career. Maybe he should have made another play here or there, but Ron Mallett was just a beast of a quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, we had him for 2 years at Arkansas. He left after his junior year. Well, it'd be a redshirt junior because he had to sit out a year. There wasn't a transfer portal back then. But that's why I'm going with Ron Mallett.
Well, I can't argue much against Ryan. He was a great quarterback. I mean, the only thing I would say is he was product of a system to an extent. You know, that system, which, you know, didn't allow the quarterbacks to think a lot and made it a lot easier for them. You know, he didn't have to call audibles at the line. Petrino was calling them in. He had to, you know, they do that, you know, meerkat look to the sideline, things like that. And so I kind of automatically, I mean, whether it's fair or not, and it may not be fair, I marked like him and Tyler Wilson down a step because of that, because I don't think when you look at guys like I'm going to talk about next, or others, you know, Clint Sterner or some of those guys, you know, they were having to make real quarterback decisions. And that's one of the reasons Mallett is struggled in the pros. Of course, because of his big arm, he's going back to the pros again, trying. I don't know if you saw the headlines about that, but anyway, it's a good pick, man, and he won a lot of good games for us, and he stood in there and made some throws that no other human probably could have made. You know, he had that big, strong arm, man, that just, you know, he could fling it. So yeah, and he led us to lots of wins. So yeah, great pickup, great pick. My next one is another quarterback that I know you agree with me a lot on him, but Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen was a guy that, you know, he was already, a lot of fans gave him a lot of flack because he was, you know, his dad was an old defensive coach for Houston, you know, and then worked in the administration, you know, and so a lot of people thought the only reason he got a scholarship was because who his dad was. But Brandon Allen worked his tail off, man. And then, you know, he gets his truck burned down by Razorback fans that didn't like him starting. I mean, literally got his truck caught on fire and burned up. And, man, he stuck it out. And I'll tell you this, Sam Pittman is a wonderful offensive line coach, okay? But that offensive line that they had when he was here last, and the accolades that it got, it would still get accolades because they were a good line. But they were not the pass blocking line that they get credit for. They were good run blocking line. But like Dan Skipper, Denver Kirkland, they couldn't pass block to save their lives. You know, Dan Skipper was 6'10", and he had arms shorter than me in years. You know, I mean, he couldn't pass block for nothing, and then he'd get his legs tied up, you know, on a speed guy. So, but Brandon Allen would stay in, would take a hit, and would deliver the pass, or he would throw it out of bounds like he's supposed to and get rid of it and not take a sack. I don't know if we've ever had a quarterback that was as good at not taking a sack as Brandon Allen. And he led with class. So Brandon Allen's my quarterback for my Mount Rushmore.
And you know, and I'm just saying this, I Googled while we're sitting here talking Brandon Allen, because I agree with you 110%. I mean, you talk about Ryan Mallett, Tyler Wilson, all them quarterbacks. No one's had a longer pro career than Brandon Allen. Brandon Allen was so well thought of that Cincinnati's like, look, you stay at home. Don't come here because you're going to be our emergency COVID quarterback.
Yeah.
Stay home, practice, you know, do your work on the side.
Yeah.
And as soon as Burrow went down, Brandon Allen was there. But he had scholarship offers from, just to name 4, Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Miami. And he signed with Petrino. I think there was another quarterback. It was at Brandon Mitchell that a lot of people wanted to start. But it wasn't. It was 3 different. It was that disaster John L. Smith year.
Yeah.
That they said no, Brandon's the guy over Mitchell. That's supposed to be Tyler Wilson, and Brandon Tyler got hurt.
Yeah.
And then the next year, under Belima, Brandon was still the guy.
Yeah.
So there's two different staffs that thought highly of Brandon.
Mm.
So I mean, he's played with Jacksonville, the Rams, Denver, and Cincinnati. I mean, the kid's going to get an NFL pension and be set for the rest of his life.
And the times that he was here, and he dealt with some junk, man, and was still the leader of that team. And those players saw him as the leader of that team. He lived through the Petrino deal and the John L. Smith, and then helped Bielema come in and get things a little bit on track again. And then, man, that Alabama game, we lost 14-13, where he took a freaking beating that game. Like, we didn't give up very many sacks, but if that would have been his brother, Austin Allen, we would have given up 10 sacks that game, because Austin was really bad about taking sacks. But Brandon got the ball out right as those guys were hitting him every time. So anyway, that's long enough on Brandon, but Brandon definitely has my respect, and I'll take him as my quarterback. He doesn't have the gun that Ryan Mallett does. He doesn't have the wheels of Matt Jones. He doesn't, all that stuff, but he's a stud ball player. All right, Clan, who's your next one?
So this is my last one, and I told I was on the fence about this until I said it. And this is people are gonna look at it, goes, if you just drove by it and this guy's face is on there, you'd be like, number one, who's that? Number two, why is that guy up there? I'm gonna stick with my gut, and I'm gonna go Robert Johnson.
Okay.
And I kind of said my criteria beforehand was how you represented Arkansas, how you represent the football program. Robert Johnson, I think it came down to Arkansas versus Kansas State, where it was his two top schools. He ended up signing with Arkansas. He backed up Matt Jones. He became the starting quarterback and was not great. He seems to be that kid that every time that he had an opportunity to quit, that he was the one that got thrown under the bus. Fast forward to his junior year, he gets beat out by I think it was his junior year. He played he started the quarterback of the USC game. Took a beating. At the end of the game, they pulled him out and put Mitch in. And Mitch did some things. And so after that game, they announced like, hey, Mitch is going to be the starter. Matter of fact, Robert Johnson's such a disaster. We're going to move him totally off the position he signed to play here. And we're going to move him to wide receiver. And he handled that. And if Jalen Hurts ever had a blueprint on how to handle himself, it was Robert Johnson. Mm. Robert Johnson did not go to the media and gripe and complain.
Yeah.
He didn't play any other card. He's like, all right, I'm going to receiver. I'm going to play. And, we're talking at the time of the transfer portal now where kids can just be like, you do that to a kid now, he's going to be in the transfer portal the next day. Yeah. Like, I'm gone. I'm like, yeah, I'll go play at UCA. I'll go play at Tech. I'll Texas Tech. I go all these other places. I don't need you.
Yeah.
But he didn't do that. And even then, he could have transferred this senior year and played. I mean, the transfer portal wasn't a thing, but I mean, he could have transferred down to like Tavares Jackson and go to Alabama and A&M. But he ended up being a serviceable wide receiver for us.
Yeah.
And he did. I mean, was he an all-star? No. But did he handle himself correctly in circumstances? And I said this back in the day, is if Houston Nutt ever did a player dirty, if a player was ever done dirty at the University of Arkansas by the coaching staff, to me, from the outside looking in, it was Robert Johnson. He was the one that went underneath the bus. Now, that being said, and I'm not proud of this. I called into Chuck Barrett one time. But when they announced he was going to be the starting quarterback, I remember I said, "Look, as the player, I'm like, if he's been the guy that's been the best in practice, he should start." But I also remember the Georgia game where Matt Jones got hurt, and we were down by 1 score, and Matt Jones is hurt, and so they put Robert Johnson in, and I know like we've lost this game. Robert Johnson can't lead us down the field.
Yeah.
But to watch the way he handled himself, that's why he's going up there. I thought Sterner, thought Allen, thought Tyler Wilson.
Yeah.
I thought a bunch of other guys, and those are just naming a few. But just the way he handled himself with class and dignity.
Yeah.
I think it was a blueprint. If you want to talk about somebody that's a true Razorback, Robert Johnson's a true Razorback.
Yeah. So. For all the reasons you said, I'm of course, once again, this is our Mount Rushmore. Okay. This isn't, by the stats, who's the best. Okay. Because Robert Johnson wouldn't be there. My next guy wouldn't be there because of the stats. This is our Mount Rushmore, okay? So you have yours. If you're watching this, let us know in the comments if you think we're totally wrong, let us know who yours is. My last one, okay?
Just tell you. Look, wait, okay, you froze up on me. You're back.
Oh, okay. Well, all right. So here's the deal. My internet connection is unstable for some reason.
You're back.
I'm back. Okay. So here's the deal. I thought about Hunter Henry. I thought about Frank Ragnow.
Me too.
You mentioned him last night. I was thinking about him. I thought about one of them I thought about was Zach Painter. Okay. That he crossed over. He just played his last year under Nutt. God rest his soul. I've thought about I was really close to Sam Ojibutu. I almost picked him, and I think you thought I was going to pick him right here. More than
I did. I think I know who you're going with, but I'm not sure. I'll tell you if I guessed it right.
Clint, I am going with the Walls of Jericho. Jericho Nelson. All 5'11", 211 pounds of him. Played a hybrid outside linebacker position, safety outside linebacker, but would bring the thunder every time he would attack the ball. You remember that play against Tennessee where he tackled the running back and their helmets got stuck together and Jericho just lifted his head up and took the dude's helmet off of his head and then just stood over him like, "You want your helmet back?" Jericho Nelson, man. He had the braids. He had he was intense. And he was around every freaking play. Now, he averaged somewhere in the, 70s. I looked up, probably, his first year he had 30-something tackles. But then he was in the 70s and 80s in tackles. That's quite a bit for a guy that's playing, in the kind of a nickel back kind of area, in the slot area. And man, he was just, once again, my did more with less. Okay. Dude was 5'11", 200 something pounds. Now there was me and my buddy Adam were talking, and I forget what play it was. But there was one game where he got ran over by somebody and gave up a touchdown. But a lot of that was just because he was smaller, but he wasn't scared to put his head in there. And, another one was, another one we left off was Tony Bua, which we could say
that's who I thought you were going with. I was going to guess.
Yeah. That's another one.
My favorite Tony Bua story was once he got drafted the 4th or 5th round, something like that. They called him and said, "Hey, we're drafting you. How's it feel to be a Dolphin?" He's like, "Well, I'm kind of ticked off right now." He goes, "What?" He goes, "I've watched all these kickers and all this get drafted in front of me, people that ain't on my level, and I'm ticked."
Yeah.
And, he really never had much of a pro career, but he was. undersized linebacker or a slow safety, which you can get away with that in college. It didn't translate. Well, we didn't discuss this. I think I want to discuss, we got to wrap it up. We're getting to the end of our time. But some players on this team, maybe name a couple players that you think could turn around and make the Mount Rushmore. Maybe talk 10, 15 years from now, we can replace somebody with them.
Well, there's two that almost made it for me this time. I mean, they were in my discussion for this time, to be honest with you. And I love Traylon Burks.
Yeah.
I love the fact that the kid didn't go to any camps. Because you know why he didn't go to camps, Clint?
Because he's busy hunting or something.
He's busy fishing.
Okay.
He wanted to fish with his grandpa, so he didn't go to camps. But you know what? He was such a talent that Alabama was still down in Warren, Arkansas, and still offering that boy. Arkansas was, and everybody else was, still offering him. The guy kills hogs with a knife. He goes hog hunting with a knife, not a gun, the knife. It's a bad dude.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He's just a good old country boy, and yet he's probably. You can argue. I think if he could be one of the best players in college football. Yeah. So I think he's gonna be on my list in the future.
And I really do think KJ Jefferson's got a chance of being special.
Yeah.
I really do. And also I think Lucas Coley's going to be special if he's patient.
Yeah.
If he's patient. The problem is KJ Jefferson's a redshirt sophomore.
Yeah.
Which he could be a redshirt freshman still technically because last year really doesn't count. So does Coley have it in him to sit 2 or 3 years behind KJ and wait his turn? I think KJ's got a chance of being really special. I know everybody's like, Jalen Catalon. They're screaming at the thing right now. And I think Grant Morgan too, because Grant Morgan's kind of got that Tony Bua, Robert Johnson, the way he's carried himself, the way he's conducted himself kind of way. He's that guy that's the leader of the team that's going to speak up. So
he's got the same thing his brother had.
Yeah.
Without the spitting in someone's face in the Music City Bowl.
Yeah.
And getting kicked out of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he does. I mean, because Drew Morgan is another one that, we talked to some of our buddies and they mentioned him. He came from a walk-on. Now, I have personal vendettas against Drew Morgan because I didn't like him in high school because they beat Camden a couple times in finals and semifinals, and he was a trash talker. Yeah. And I was on the sidelines for one of those games, and I didn't like the way he was talking. So he caught a game-winning touchdown right in front of me, and I mean, part of that was just him winning, excited about winning.
He let you know about it?
He let everybody know about it. Yeah. Yeah. And it was hurtful because I was close to those boys and I wanted to see them win. So, but no, there's so many. So folks, please get on here, comment on Facebook, comment on YouTube, wherever you're watching this, wherever you like to comment. If you want to comment on Instagram, whatever. You'd say y'all are idiots. Tell us we're idiots. We're okay with that.
Yeah, we've been told before.
Yeah, that's
Tom
right.
Clark told us that before.
That's right. Look, we're talking about our favorites. Okay, so we want to hear your favorites. These are not consensus is sitting on an all-American list. These are, no one would put Robert Johnson on one of the greatest Razorbacks of all time.
Nobody.
Besides Clint
Not even
Clark,
me.
probably. Okay. No one would put, Brandon Allen as the best quarterback of all time. I picked him above. Look, I love Matt Jones. I had season tickets when Matt Jones was quarterback. I was at every home game. when Matt Jones was quarterback for Arkansas. I loved watching Matt Jones. But for different reasons, I picked Brandon Allen. Okay. I mean, I respect what he did. And I didn't want to put more than one quarterback on there. I loved Clint Sterner. We left Clint Sterner off, man. I mean,
Yeah. And we discussed, I mean, Clint Sterner, I mean, a lot of these guys we mentioned, Sterner, Ragnow, they made
Jonathan Lewigs, Travis Swanson. I mean, there's some good ones, man. There's some good ones we didn't talk about.
Kirkland, I mean, Alex Collins. Yeah.
Alex Collins. Jonathan Williams played with him.
Yeah.
The only guy I know to get more rushing yards going backwards than he did frontwards, because he would get hit and turn his back to the defense and then just start pushing. But yeah, I mean, those guys were great. I loved Alex Collins, man. Loved him. So anyway, who do you think? Who are we missing? We've started throwing out all these. Who are we? As I throw out my earphone here, who are we missing? Who are we? You say Clint, Travis, y'all are missing it on this guy. You're missing on this guy. Whatever, what have you. Okay. Well, Clint, it's been another good podcast. It's been a good week. The Hogs are doing some good recruiting stuff. They just signed a 6'7", 370-pound offensive lineman.
They say he's going to be ready to play from day one.
Dude, he's Alabama's been talking to him since he was in 9th grade.
Yeah.
And he was anyway. But we got a lot of exciting things happening with the Hogs. Let's keep rooting on the baseball team, and let's keep having a good week. Keep listening to Sean Michelle. Please, y'all, share this. Please, 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 please. I'm begging. Please.
We're not too bad. Remember, 200 likes, any podcast to do the entire episode in my purple singlet.
Purple singlet.
Spandex.
He'll do it. He'll do it, folks. Clint falls through on his promises.
Yeah.
So, yeah, yikes. So anyway, don't ever give up. Rock out to Sean Michelle. Have a good week. Big C, as always, love you, bro. Keep it rocking in the free world. And let's roll, baby.
Sweat, work, filthy, dirt, harvest, hurt, kingdom come. Sweat, work, filthy, dirt, harvest, hurt, kingdom come. Listen, that's why I sweat when I work. My hands get filthy down in this dirt. Won't see no harvest till I hurt. Crying your kingdom come. Listen, I wake up in the morning, I bow my head to pray. Mama told me if I don't, ain't nothing gonna change. These prayers breaking up hard ground so I can sow the seed. Ain't afraid of no aches and pain. Lord knows I gotta follow his lead. That's why I sweat when I work. My hands get filthy down in this dirt. Won't see no harvest till I hurt. Crying your kingdom come. Oh, I sweat when I work. My hands get filthy down in this dirt. Won't see no harvest till I hurt. Crying your kingdom come. Sun beating down so hard, I can barely breathe. Hard to sing a joyful song, the words got me on my knees. Then the gentle breeze blows by, pick me up right on time. Listen, now I know the Lord is near, working right by my side. That's why I sweat when I work. My hands get filthy down in this dirt. Won't see no harvest till I hurt. Crying your kingdom come.